Welcome back to another edition of the Sal Greco Show, and I'm your host, Sal Greco. On this edition, there's going to be a lot of stuff we're going to unveil here. If you follow social media, at least my feed or John Macari's feed or the Finest Unfiltered feed, or Eric Dim or Marlon Bethel, none of this will surprise you, but we're going to get right into it with my special guest, John Macari. So let's get right to it. All right, welcome back to the Sal Greco Show. And as promised, I come with a special guest. He's the co-host of the Finest Unfiltered podcast, retired NYPD lieutenant, and my good friend, John Macari. How's everything, John? How you been?
Good, man. Good. Enjoying the show. It's the greatest show on earth, my friend.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. So just to set the table here. So me and John, I actually co-hosted the Finest Unfiltered show yesterday morning, and we discussed an array of topics. One of the hot topics being Eric Adams was at the inauguration, and it's all this pre-pardon talk for his case, even though Joe Biden pre-pardoned like his entire family and all these other people. So, we brought up all of that talk and how you can't have one thing and not the other, because you can't be mad at Joe Biden and not be mad at Donald Trump for pre-pardoning Eric Adams. If that's the case, we don't know yet. It's all, speculation. But amongst this now, we signed off and literally our phones, it was a non-stop news cycle. So John himself posted something about John Schell as the chief of department, stating that, we understand that he went to Washington, D.C., and he went there for this inauguration, which I posted pictures of him from social media. I guess he was with a bunch of Republicans. Today, he's a MAGA guy. Yesterday, he was a progressive Democrat. So he was in D.C., and John had stated that he went there, but did not have the permission of the police commissioner. And also, we come to find out the police commissioner has some kind of consultant giving her advice. So I don't know if you want to retell that story, John, before we get into anything else, before we get into the press conference of Eric Adams after this. But can you just say that one more time, what you had found out? He actually posted. Sorry, I don't have the post up, but you did say this, and then all hell broke loose after this. I'm just setting the table.
Pretty credible anonymous source reached out and said that John Schell was insubordinate. Nobody's talking about it. He was specifically instructed to not go to Washington, D.C. So, but yet him, Kaz Daughtry, and Eric Adams used taxpayer funds to go down to Washington, D.C. Not, there were numerous NYPD vehicles down there. I guess nothing was happening in New York City. And apparently, how he did that is he went around the police commissioner or, the person who's pretending to be the police commissioner, Jessica Tipp, and he actually contacted Eric Adams, and Eric Adams gave him the blessing. In police lingo, that's called boss shopping. You're not allowed to do that. It's actually punishable. It's actually a punishable offense in the police department. It's called boss shopping. You don't do that. You follow the instructions of the first person you ask. So he's instructed to not go there. Also, the source was saying how there's a person who was in the Kelly administration who is now the consultant for Jessica Tisch, and that she's meeting often with unindicted co-conspirator. And it's pretty interesting. If you look after my tweet comes out, if you look at an unindicted co-conspirator, one that worked for New York City government and was the head of public safety, the deputy mayor of public safety, if you look at what he posted directly after my tweet came out about it, it's a little interesting. I would check it out.
Very interesting. And we unveiled this live as the news came down. We unveiled this live. So that's going to set the table for what I'm going to show you. So then after this, we didn't know this. Unbeknownst to us, Eric Adams has his weekly press conference. So apparently he came back from Washington, D.C., So that I guess the NYPD, which we don't know what the hell they were doing that in to begin with. And so he has his press conference and he gets asked a bunch of questions, and one of them in particular we're going to show you because it's unbelievable. Look, this is the greatest show on earth. Eric Adams, who now is trying to mold himself into some conservative Republican because certain Republicans have business either in front of Eric Adams in City Hall or are involved in some shady business dealings behind everyone's backs. Because remember, President Trump did not invite Eric Adams personally. It was the Steve Witkoff guy. I don't know who he is, or, he's a real estate guy. Remember, real estate, they're all connected to mayors. So just to remember that. And I don't know what this relationship is. We'll look into that at a later date, but we'll just stick to what happened here at the press conference. So this was John's post. John said, after comparing his indictment to the struggles of Martin Luther King Jr. at today's press conference, New York City Mayor Eric Adams was asked if he would reinstate city workers, cops, firefighters, teachers, etc., whom he terminated over New York City's vaccine mandate. Eric Adams refused to answer the question and passed the buck to New York City Corporation Counsel. The reporter's question comes on the heels of President Trump stating he will reinstate members of our military who were also terminated over noncompliance with the federal government's vaccine mandate with back pay and an apology. The open border loving COVID mandate stormtrooper Eric Adams once again shows his true colors. I'm going to make it a nice wide screen.
Hello, Mr. Mayor.
How are you?
After yesterday's announcement by President Trump that he will reinstate service members fired for objecting COVID vaccine mandates, will you reconsider reinstating city workers, especially first responders, fired for the same reason?
Well, first of all, hats off to really want to thank those New Yorkers. COVID was a challenging time. I remember speaking with Bill de Blasio, who was the mayor at the time, on regular basis on how he had to make tough decisions. And one of the most difficult decisions, no New Yorker wants to be told they have to take a vaccine or compelled to do so. It was a very difficult decision, closing down our city. We didn't know where COVID was going to take us. It was a pandemic that impacted the whole city, and we made sure that we had to make these tough decisions. And New York has stepped up to that. And we put in place several different initiatives for those who received the mandate, and there was pathways of how to go about being reinstated. Corp Counsel is handling these cases. Corp Counsel would make the decision. I respect the decision of the Corporation Counsel as the attorney for the city to decide how do we move forward.
John, so I want to, before you even answer that or get into that, just want this on record. Eric Adams is the head of New York City, and the Corporation Counsel listens to Eric Adams. If tomorrow he wakes up and says, drop the appeal, they're dropping the appeal. He doesn't need the lawyer. The lawyers will work around what their boss tells them to do. Remember, he is the elected official running the city, not the head of Corporation Counsel, who, by the way, is representing him illegally in numerous sexual misconduct cases, okay? So, and he's representing many of his friends in the police department as well. So that's just the background on that. So, John, what are your thoughts on what he said? Because I don't know what to say to that. It's just unbelievable, his answer.
We watched an interview with him, Tucker Carlson, yesterday, and to me, I completely think it was a PR campaign to paint Eric Adams as a moderate. Again, it comes on the heels of Donald Trump 2 days ago announcing he will restore everyone in the military, not only with back pay, but with a public apology. And so how are we, Tucker Carlson titled his interview, Eric Adams sounds like a Donald Trump supporter. No, he doesn't. How does he sound right there? He wouldn't even answer the question. He passed the buck over to the Corporation Counsel. And he literally, if you watch the opening of that interview, and that wasn't on the recording that you play, he literally compared the plight of Martin Luther King to have civil rights in this country to him being indicted and the numerous corruption investigation and scandals that he's under, both at the federal, state, and city level, and ensnared his administration. And for him and his incompetent, corrupt friends having gotten caught with their hands in the cookie jar. And yet he's trying to make it like this is his Job moment. He had to get close to God and he's being persecuted. And it makes absolutely no sense to me. It makes, the other thing I think is like this notion that's out there in the media that he was indicted because he went against Joe Biden's border policy when Eric Adams was the champion of mayors for illegal immigration. He was the champion. He touted illegal immigration for 3 years. The official position of New York City was the borders should remain open. October 3rd, 2023, the only time he changed his position, the first time he changed it, after his indictment, after Donald Trump won the election and it was official. That's when he changed. Up until then.
John, you're stating all the facts here. Like I like to say here, not only on the Finest Unfiltered podcast, but the Sal Greco Show, this is all fact-based analysis. So we're just bringing you the truth here. And I'm just going to tell you, with Eric Adams and this whole thing with the Corporation Council, this is called the pivot and shift. He knows this very well, the pivot and shift. He's trying to make you forget what he just said 5 seconds ago. He's going to try to spin it a different way, only to 5 seconds later spin back to the original position, because that's the pivot and shift. And this guy, I don't know what exactly he said on Tucker Carlson. I have to watch the whole thing, but I could tell you, I don't know if this is a softball interview. Tucker has interviewed many people, including myself, and I don't know how he didn't bring me up. I mean, he knows my story, and here's Eric Adams trying to paint himself as a Donald Trump supporter, but he terminated me for being a Donald Trump supporter. He did. He was in charge. He could have killed that whole thing. He could have said, hey, I was a victim of criminal association that they said I associated with real criminals like Mike Tyson and Louis Farrakhan and Al Sharpton. But hey, he kept his job and his pension, and he was heralded in the New York State Police Department. I, on the other hand, became a leper who is a insurrectionist, even though I've never been to the Capitol. In fact, Eric Adams now, after Monday, has been to the U.S. Capitol more times than Sal Greco has in his whole life. He was there and I wasn't. So that's just the spin and the correct way of stating all of this. So besides having to deal with these appeals that he keeps, fighting, he's still going to fight them because he's got to play both sides of the aisle. He's got my case to deal with, the guy that he keeps trying to forget about, that he's not forgetting about. Because as you know, Roger Stone stated on Sid Rosenberg's Sid in the Morning show, which was co-hosted by John Katsimatidis and Curtis Lewa, that he actually saw Eric Adams at the gala, and he said, you expect to have clemency from President Trump, but I expect to have clemency then from my friend Sal Greco, who you terminated because he was my friend.
I also saw your esteemed mayor, Eric Adams, who I've known well back to the days when he was a state senator. And it's pretty commonly known that he's seeking pardon in his current federal indictment, which I urge people to read because, sorry, but it's more serious than it's been depicted by some in the media. But we had a friendly exchange. And I said, Eric, you're seeking clemency from the president. I'm seeking clemency from my friend Salvatore Greco, who you, as mayor and your police commissioner, terminated after 14 years of blemishless service to the people of New York simply because he was my friend, convicted of no crime. You want mercy, you want clemency. Tell the city of New York to settle the lawsuit against Sal Greco. Maybe it's time to put this whole chapter behind us.
Wow, that could be breaking news. But there's a lot of hate all over the place.
The mayor committed to nothing. He was gracious. He listened. I also explained to him why I've been critical of him in recent years. It was a friendly exchange. I'm not going to characterize it beyond that.
But at least there was somebody who was the bigger man in the room and not groveling over somebody who's clearly not a Republican. And maybe we need to expose the Republicans that are behind Eric Adams, whether it be business dealings, real estate dealings, casino, wannabe deals, all of that stuff. And I guarantee you one guy in that world who people just don't want to. I mean, I've never seen a guy like Steve Bannon who just He's involved in every criminal, thing, China, Miles Guo. But yet he's the greatest guy ever. And you got to be aware of this, people. I know this audience is very much, in tune with things and their fact-based analysis, and they're not going to fall for this stuff. In a year or two from now, you're going to say what Sal Greco was saying is actually true. And Steve Bannon, who was a perjurer at Roger Stone's trial, which you would have never found out had Donald Trump pre-pardoned him for that and let that whole case go through to all that was just a corrupt trial, which was the blueprint for what came for the next 4 years. You would have never learned Steve Bannon was the perjurer because he perjured himself on the stand. And that was the lead into what ended up happening with Build the Wall, which is where he was one of the original three that got pre-pardoned. It's Richard Nixon, Henry Kissinger, and Steve Bannon. They were pre-pardoned before trial or anything. Yet Steve Bannon now is charged in New York State, where he happens to now hire Eric Adams' best friend, Artie Idala, to be his lawyer. There's nothing to see here, folks. Eric Adams is really a progressive Democrat, and so is Artie Idala. They're now trying to get into the MAGA world. I mean, you can't fall for this stuff. I mean, really, John, what do you think about all of that? I hate to bring up Bannon and everything, but it's like, are we playing checkers or chess? Like, what's going on here?
I've been saying for a long time, the biggest problem in New York is not the socialists. It's not the one party controls being allowed by the Republican Party, because they're in on all of the corruption. And that's why they're moving Eric Adams and trying to paint him and help out in this PR campaign. And they're pushing all of their contacts in the media and all of their contacts to get Eric Adams to the inauguration, to get him on the Tucker Carlson show, throw some misinformation, do a little whitewashing of the first indicted mayor in New York City history, of the first mayor with 4 NYPD police commissioners, the first mayor to see numerous corruption scandals that are going to turn out to be, if they're not already, the largest corruption scandals in police history, in American history, in American police history. And we're trying to whitewash this man. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying, why are New York Republicans fighting so hard to get this indictment to go away and to get this case from being properly investigated? And the only thing I could come up with is that they're directly involved in what was going on with these migrant contracts, with these as it relates to hotels, to the services, to the debit cards. And they obviously do not want these investigations to go further, because Eric Adams is everything but a Republican. He is not anything like a Trump supporter. Like that Tucker Carlson interview, and I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to do it all at once. I'm going to go through the whole interview, and every answer that he gives, I'm going to take a separate piece of Eric Adams contradicting what he answered on Tucker Carlson show, because everything he said contradicted something he had said prior. Literally everything. They were talking about marijuana smoke in New York, and Tucker Carlson was saying how disgusting the marijuana smoke is in New York. And Eric Adams like, yeah, we gotta do something about that. We gotta come up with that. Meanwhile, just a few months ago this summer, they were in 42nd Street holding a press conference. It smells like marijuana, and he's bragging about somebody's taking advantage of the laws we passed and how happy he was that it smells like marijuana. So it's like not like literally every position he had, he flipped on. Not even on his indictment, not even on the heels of indictment, but when it was official that Donald Trump was going to be the president, he completely did a 360. A 180. He did a complete 180 on every single one of his positions. And it's laughable that the Republicans are allowing this. And not only are they allowing it, they're helping this along with numerous supposedly conservative, independent social media influencers trying to clean up. But the tape's there. Like, you could go through Sal's Twitter, you could go through my Twitter. Just type in Eric Adams. You're gonna see everything that this man's been saying for 3 years, and it's everything different than what he said on that interview.
And in reality, I think they just think that people are what I keep saying. They're low information voters. They're low information people. Oh, vote for me. We're the same. We're both Hispanic. We're both black. We're both Italian. Yeah. I want to vote for that. Oh, yeah. We shop at the same store. We shop at the same, we get the same suits. I think you're funny when you say, hi, I'm Eric Adams. That's why they vote for him. That's what they're aiming for. You do any research, you're going to say, my God, how is this guy not locked away for 10 years prior, for the last 10 years? That's what they're not doing. They're not doing any kind of research. They want you to stay low information. But speaking of low information, I have another post that's actually from our friend Marlon Bethel, and it goes back to what we were talking about prior with Tish, Police Commissioner Tish, and her office, and what's really going on, especially after what John unveiled on Tuesday morning. So here is our friend from the retired Unfiltered family, Marlon Bethel. And this is a post. You see Brian Burke, and it's circled. It says he's a chief security officer. And this is, I guess, his LinkedIn. And then it goes back to the McAndrews and Forbes Corporation, because it was founded by Edward McAndrews and William Forbes. And his LinkedIn also, and it's also, I believe, his own, because Ronald Perlman's on this, and he's part of the McAndrews and Forbes Incorporated. And Burke was a assistant chief in the NYPD. He made it all the way there. So this was the post. So this is what Marlon Bethel states. He's a Ray Kelly guy, old boss, but really a Ronald Perlman guy, new boss. He even resigned from his private sector job. Maybe that's why his LinkedIn was seemingly scrubbed of its photos. So how many NYPD initiatives like drones, robots, etc. are tied to the investments and ventures of the NYPD Police Foundation donors? Philanthropy seems like a great way to get government contract money to pump your venture capital endeavors, doesn't it? What's your take on what you just read and what you saw there from Marlon?
Yeah, supposedly, these people are being contracted out by Jessica Tisch to help run the New York City Police Department, and they have not went through conflict of interest board checks. And now Marlon has showed you why they haven't went through the conflict of interest board check. Because if they did, they would fail glaringly. And, they would do a workaround. There would be some type of loophole. Really, what we like to call it is actual corruption and it would just be allowed to happen like this. The abuse of taxpayers' funds is hot and heavy. And the whitewashing of money it's disturbing at this point. It really is. It's highly disturbing what's happening in New York. And you're seeing it really is a one-party state, in my opinion. There are no elected Republicans in New York. They are all in on the game. Go down the list. Go to easy winnable seats. You never see the Republican Party in New York mentoring candidates, trying to recruit and attract new talent. I mean, the fact that no one's came to Sal Greco or myself to run for office in New York City shows you clear as day and we could win hands down. We wouldn't even need their endorsement or their money. We could win hands down just by doing door knocking with some flyers, grassroots effort. We can win hand down a city council seat, a Senate seat, an assembly seat, even potentially a Congress seat. And the fact that they haven't recruited shows you something. And when you look at all of these easy winnable seats and like socialists and far left progressives are running unopposed, and you sit there and you're like, why wouldn't the GOP try to take that seat and try to restore order, try to restore some balance? And then you go look at the right seat and you look on Staten Island and you look at them and they're running unopposed too. And you're like, wait a minute, are they all just running a game together? And maybe they're not trying to win because they're just trying to keep the game going because they're all really in cahoots. And that's what I see in New York. And that's why I say that, the Republicans really are the problem in New York. There is no opposition. They're controlled opposition. And that's what you're seeing here, that all of this corruption is just being allowed to go without anyone questioning it, without any pushback. And it's funny, like the biggest supporters of Eric Adams today is the Republican Party, even though he destroyed the NYPD, even though he destroyed New York City, even though more cops have retired, left early, or resigned. More cops under Eric Adams than at any other time in history. And no one's saying a word about it. It's like, yeah, everything's great. Tucker Carlson said that he heard everyone says that crime's getting better. And I'm like, what? And then Eric Adams is talking about that, if you just remove the pandemic years. So we're just taking years of crime away. hundreds of thousands of crime, and then we're out of the historic lows. It's disgusting.
I like to state one thing. It's actually a fact that under the socialist mayor, Bill de Blasio, New York City crime was actually a lot lower than it has been under Eric Adams. And that includes the years of 2020 and 2021. The Eric Adams years, as Sam Antar has posted numerous times, the violent crime is through the roof. It's actually at record levels. It's higher than it was over 20 years ago. Under the illustrious Ray Kelly, who seems to be in the background of Jessica Tisch, even though I thought he doesn't like Eric Adams, you're starting to see what I'm talking about here. All you did is set one set of cronies, like the unindicted co-conspirator and Timmy Pearson. You got rid of them and enter Ray Kelly's cronies. That's all that happened here. So they wrestled away a little bit of the control at the top level, which really isn't, because as you can tell, and as I'm about to show you, Police Commissioner Tisch is not the real police commissioner. Neither was Tom Donlin. Neither was Eddie Caban. And to be all honest, I think there's going to be evidence here that proves that Keyshawn Sewell wasn't the police commissioner either. So I'm going to start with this next post because it does feature the guy we know to be the true police commissioner. So NYPD breaking news. Allegedly, former NYPD Chief of Department Jeffrey Madry and NYPD Deputy Commissioner of Operations Kaz Daughtry, under the direction of New York City Mayor Eric Adams, charged Chief Theodore Fedorov with justifying Kaz's executive existence in the NYPD. The Dream Team allegedly created CRT for personal promotion of then Chief of Patrol and current Chief of Department John Schell, the exact same way the Dream Team used Taru in the creation of the NYPD drone unit for Kaz Daughtry. Hashtag the Sal Greco Show. Hashtag the finest unfiltered. So, John, what are your thoughts on what you just read there? Because there's a couple more parts coming. That's just the initial one.
I mean, listen, it's I kind of criticized Tina Moore when she wrote the article, who the real police commissioner was. She said a long time ago that it was when Keyshawn Sewell was still the police commissioner. She wrote an article that said that numerous people in One Police Plaza say that then Detective Kaz Daughtry was the real police commissioner. And everything we've seen is that is actually the case. I believe what's happening and what the case that you're laying out is Jessica Tisch has been brought in to clean up the image of the New York City Police Department. Did a little bit of a good job in the beginning, but the fact that Kaz Daughtry remains, numerous of his employees were caught in this overtime scandal, and he was not ousted for it. Just they were. Same goes for John Schell. John Schell was actually promoted. And we don't see them online anymore. We don't see them doing social media posts. So they're like being brushed off the side in the public eye. But the day-to-day operations are still being run by Kaz Daughtry and John Schell. Obviously, Jessica Tisch, told him not to go to Washington, D.C., and they went anyway. So she's obviously not the real police. That's called insubordination. Now it's an automatic. It's a must suspend. They should be automatically suspended for failing to obey a lawful order. You can't go around to the mayor. The chief of department and the deputy commissioner of operations do not work for the mayor of New York City. Their boss and the person they listen to is the NYPD police commissioner, which is Jessica Tisch, and they completely disregarded her, which tells you everything. She has no real power. She's a figurehead.
She's a figurehead, but she has Ray Kelly advising her. That's Ray Kelly's cronies, apparently. So there's more. Yeah. And there is even more to this. Right to the left of this is the Office of the Inspector General for the NYPD. This was a response I got after I made a DOI complaint, and I'll explain this in the post. Fun fact, prior to my complaint to the DOI, Kaz Daughtry was an errand boy for New York City Mayor Eric Adams. In other words, the true NYPD police commissioner, and still is by all means. After my complaint to the DOI, then NYPD Chief of Department Jeffrey Madry and New York City Mayor Eric Adams had NYPD Assistant Chief Theodore Fedorov create the job specifications, title, and organizational structure to justify NYPD Deputy Commissioner of Operations positions for Kaz Daughtry. The department moved operations. Taru City Hall initially justified Kaz's existence, creating a drone program, transit drones, using the Office of Management Analysis and Planning, OMAP, to make the organizational changes to justify the budget, etc. Have fun trying to debunk this. Hashtag the Sal Greco Show. Hashtag the finest unfiltered. What do you say about that, John?
Yeah, you were calling him out for running around with his badge and his gun like he was a uniformed member of service when they had moved him from detective to assistant commissioner and what his title was. When you filed that complaint, yeah, almost immediately he was bumped up to deputy commissioner of operations, and it falls in line, And I think the chief you mentioned, I'm hearing that he may have been hit with a federal subpoena. And that's weird because I remember in the past that anytime any of the members of the service were ever interviewed by members of the FBI or their homes were raided or they had devices taken from them, I remember those officers being immediately modified and having their guns and their shields removed. And, we've seen this happen. We've been seeing this happen for months and nobody's had their gun and shield removed. And I'm just saying, obviously, the New York City Police Department is systemically corrupt. And I'm waiting to wake up any day and see people purple walked out of One Police Plaza. But yeah, 100%. Everything's a game. Everything's a maneuver. And then while he was operating as a civilian, what did we come to find out? He's making overtime too. He's getting this high, ginormous salary, higher than anybody else, and he's putting in for overtime. Corruption, stealing time, stealing money. Same thing that Lieutenant Epps was accused of. Same thing all these other people were accused of. Kaz Daughtry was doing the same thing, yet nothing happened to him. Nobody's calling him out for it. It's a loophole. It's not a loophole. It's corruption. You're not allowed to do it. It's stealing. It's stealing money. It's stealing taxpayer funds.
100% he was stealing taxpayer dollars. I mean, there's also an investigation with that. I know the DOI has taken his phone a couple of times, but I guess that he's involved in so much stuff that where do you begin to start? I mean, that's the issue with all these cases is, you don't know really where to begin and where to start because it's so vast, right? It's such a big network. So this was another post of mine and it's the same thing. There's my complaint from when I complained to the Office of the Inspector General for the NYPD, which is the Department of Investigation. And here it is on the right. Fun fact. NYPD Mayor Eric Adams and the NYPD response to above listed complaint to the DOI by myself asking to justify Kaz Daughtry engaging in law enforcement activities, including carrying a firearm as a, quote, assistant commissioner, end quote. Eric tapped Chief Fedorov to justify Kaz's executive existence. John, what do you think about that? Because we used to talk about that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. People are like just glossing over. There are no rules. There's no regulations in the NYPD. And Eric Adams' boat is filled with nepotism, incompetence, and people that don't deserve to be in spots, not earned. People always say about diversity, equity, inclusion, didn't earn it. Kaz Daughtry is the shining light example of that. He drove around Eric Adams. It's rumored that he drove around Eric Adams while Eric Adams campaigned. Longtime friend of Jeffrey Maddrey. He drove Jeffrey Maddrey. By all means, he has no operational experience or any operational supervision experience, yet he's bumped up to the assimilated rank of a 3-star chief, and he's being put in charge of major bureau and millions of dollars, might I add. We've seen so many mistakes and so much like immaturity come out of that office. It really begs the question. What does Kaz Daughtry have on anybody that they've bumped him up to this rank? Because he clearly, not only did he not earn it, he hasn't earned maintaining it either. He's done a horrible job, I think. He's not well liked by the men and women of the NYPD. The same goes for the now chief of department. The same went for the past chief of department. that's why you're seeing morale's in the toilet. Everyone's leaving the job. Everybody has an exit plan. The new guys are saying 10's the new 20, like meaning they're going to leave in 10 years if they could last that long. We're fending off calls daily of people asking how to leave, what they should do, and it's really a sad state of affairs, man. It's just this is the pathway to success in the Eric Adams administration is not through competence, it's not through hard work, it's not through the traditional methods of how people rose the rank in the NYPD. It's clearly it's nepotism followed by blind compliance. Whatever's happening, don't say a word, just do whatever I tell you. Don't worry if it's illegal, but don't worry because he always tells his people to follow the law.
Follow the law, right? Follow the law, he says. Only, I don't know what the law is because they actually asked him a question about that at this press conference. You say follow the laws. What are the directives in regards to these now potential raids that are coming from ICE? And he had no update. He didn't know what to say. Oh, give him the update. You send him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. What's the law? Because he hasn't updated anyone on what the law is, what they're going to do. So that's a whole nother story with Eric Adams. And it's funny you didn't mention it. But then there's a little more that trickled out in regards to things that I'm having these confirmed also. What I want to state is I stand by whatever I've posted on X. So does John. You could call them allegations, you call it rumor, but you know what? No one's debunked anything yet. And I know they're always late to the charge. Just so, the mainstream media, especially, they have access to these press conferences. They ask the same question of Eric Adams, I think 5 times, 6 times about immigration. And it's like, guys, you have a corrupt mayor in front of you. Stop asking. Listen, there's nothing you could do. I know personally some of them might be offended that President Donald Trump is the president. You lost. He's the president. Deal with it. We had to deal with your crazy guy in there for 4 years that did nothing but destroy the country. So stop asking those questions and start asking the questions that the people want to know. It's like you're almost like a lobby or a lawyer for the illegal immigrant population, which they are not rounding people up. I don't know where you're getting your information from. Some of these journalists act like low information people themselves. I'm stunned. We want to know about what's going on, where your money in New York City, taxpayer money is going to, what's Eric Adams up to, not this, illegal. But, he went to D.C. and he also went to West Palm Beach to meet President Trump. Who paid for that? I think it was New York City taxpayers. There was no questions about that. How did you pay for that and why? Why did you get funded to go 2 times to see President Trump? You didn't even see him at the inauguration. He admitted it. He never even saw him. So what was that really about? So that's a whole nother story. But that was the press conference. I saw many liberal, like left-wing leaning questions, and people want to know where their money's going. Listen, they're going to raid people. There's nothing you can do. That's a federal government. That's a real federal government job, or national government, as Eric Adams has stated. Because he did state once again that he was the Biden of Brooklyn. I don't know if you heard that. He said, I stated I was the Biden of Brooklyn. He did mention that at the press conference. That's actually hilarious that he would go back to saying that. Here's another fun fact. City Hall personnel not employed with the NYPD received NYPD identification cards compromising department facilities, crime scenes, including NYPD headquarters. And what about the under-the-table, unrestricted NYPD parking plaques distributed to the executive management's friends and family? Have fun trying to debunk this one, too. Hashtag the Sal Greco Show. Hashtag the finest unfiltered. John, what are your thoughts on that? Because you've seen this before all over social media with the placard stuff, with these cronies that are not cops using NYPD placards.
Absolute corruption. I mean, all of it. People have ID cards to get into sensitive locations. This appears to be pay for play to me. This appears to be more quid pro quo. We're giving NYPD identification cards to people who aren't vetted by the NYPD, people who aren't members of the NYPD. We're giving parking placards. At the same time, we're getting in line with this congestion price. None of it makes sense to me. And it's pure, utter corruption. Anyone that was involved in any step of the matter should be immediately suspended. All of those plaques should be immediately confiscated. And there should be an investigation done into who got identification cards, who got plaques, and why. And I think when you start to ask those questions, people's heads are going to spin. And just go back on the reporters. Listen, Trump deranged syndrome's real, man. It's totally real. And you could tell a lot of those people had to take a couple of days off of work after the election, because you're right. They're more concerned about the fact that Eric Adams met with Trump than what he did wrong by meeting with Trump. Why did he use taxpayers' funds to go there? They're not concerned about the corruption at all. It's just about that what did he say to Trump? What did Trump say? Why is he aligning with Trump? And you're 100% right. They're out today. ICE is out today. Are people is the churro lady getting rounded up and deported? No. Like, stop the lies. But they're going after public safety threats. This should be a bipartisan. This should be a bipartisan support. Yeah. Public safety threats. We should get out of the countries. That's it.
That is the law. They're going after these people that not only are public safety threat, but they're part of gangs. We recognize them, especially law enforcement community. When they get arrested, there's no notifications to ICE. Oh, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about just knocking on a door. These people, again, it is Trump derangement syndrome, because you focusing on Trump. What is he saying? Oh my God, you're still stuck in this. And I'm going to say this once again. Donald Trump, President Trump, won the majority of votes in his country. Being MAGA is the majority. It's always been the majority since this guy got onto the political landscape. The minority are the ones screaming for things like that, like a little baby that screams for their bottle or attention, but you are the minority. The fact is, the majority of people in this country want to see illegal immigrants that are criminals deported. If you come here to work, you have a visa, you're an honest tax-paying citizen trying to become an official American citizen, that's not who we're going to deport. That is un-American, actually. We want people to come here to work, to try to live the American dream, just like our ancestors, they all did the same thing. But you're trying to make it, you think that some of these journalists think they're going to knock on doors, rip people out. I don't know if you think this is a communist Soviet Union that, we conquered years ago. This is America. And in America, we voted to have illegal immigrants taken out of this country that are gang members, have multiple convictions on them, or commit violent felonies and are still here. Okay? And it used to be the right of a judge to do that in New York State. And I believe he could still do it, but it's all, even to get an illegal immigrant to court, he's going to run away because he's a known gang member. This is going on and on and on. Nobody wants to talk about that. They just want to go back to, you met with Trump. Oh, no. What? He spent taxpayer dollars to go see President Trump. For what? What exactly was discussed? And why is this Witkoff guy with Frank Carone, another guy who's been investigated by the feds and was raided and all this other stuff, had his phones taken. He's involved in that church scandal. There's money missing. All of that stuff. That's a guy also that shouldn't be meeting with the president. I don't know what that's about. Ask Steve Witkoff. What's his connections to all these, underworld figures like Frank Carone and also Eric Adams? Someone should ask that question. Why is he so prevalent in the Trump administration in the early days? But so I'm going to get to this last post. And I give you the backstory with this. So after all this expose we've been doing today, I received a call from someone, I guess somebody we both know in the political sphere, and said, Sal Greco, you got to be careful because the Democrat Party's trying to come after you. They're going to do all kinds of things to you. I don't know. You're going to send a mob associate my way? Or you're going to threaten me online? Because we already know we have guys DMing me that want to know who the rat and the snitch is giving photos, some cop, because I don't know what that was about, Eric Adams goons. We have people that were already threatening the lives of John Macari and Eric Dim's children online under a moniker. They were another NYPD cop that got booted. So you're using cops as stooges. That's one of your first problems. The second one is they apparently are very upset that Consa Frito is no longer in business, because, as you know, that's the Hall of Felons where everything and anything went. And it was the hub for this little group. And it's an eclectic group of politicians, cops, attorney generals, all these lobbyists, real the powerhouse behind. So I got this call, they're going to try to delay your case and they're going to make this go long. So now my case is going to get delayed. Apparently they're going to use some tactic. I hope anyone in the federal government listening, they're going to try to do this apparently. I mean, that's what they're trying to do, these mob tactics. But then this was my answer, because trust me, I know a lot more about what you're doing than what I could have possibly be doing. I'm not even a politician, nor I'm a cop. And I stand by my record as a cop because I have my accolades behind me. And I walked away with an unblemished record. There's nothing there. Nothing. You guys dug up like you were digging on me, like you were digging for my grave. And the best you could do is say, we don't like that you're friends with Roger Stone and you're a Trump support. That was the whole gimmick of what you were doing. So let me show you what we did find out. Fun fact. NYPD First Deputy Commissioner Tiny Kinsella's office approves or disapproves New York City Police Foundation expenditures, department donations, including department gadgets, police equipment, hotel rooms, food, office luncheons, etc. NYPD Deputy Commissioner Kaz Dawdry is one of the holders of a credit card to be used for expenditures. What's going on there? Is anyone going to ask the NYPD Police Commissioner or Kaz or Eric Adams about this? Or are we going to be subjected to Tucker Carlson interviews of Eric Adams with no real substantive answers from Eric, who is always, quote, pivoting and shifting, end quote. Hashtag the Sal Greco Show, hashtag the finest unfiltered. So, John, that's an exclusive. What is your thoughts on that one?
Listen, I'd love to see the expense records for all this stuff, all of it. But if they're using money through a not-for-profit, that's a problem. That's a big problem. Like, how are we getting those records? How are we seeing what's being spent? And, I've been asking for a while. Kaz Dawdry seems to wear very expensive clothing, all heavily embroidered, all embroidered to like the nines, with Deputy Commissioner of Operation everywhere. He's got his own hats, his own jackets, and I never see any of these clothing items twice. And I'm telling you right now, it doesn't appear to me that he's paying for this, because I know myself and I know cops, and I know cops traditionally. If you're going to spend money on your uniform, you're going to wear it more than once. You're not going to have a new uniform item in every different color and all different days, and it has embroidery all over it, on the front, on the sleeves, on the back. These are hundreds of dollars each piece of clothing. And we see it over and over again, on top of, Eric, it used to be when he was the borough president, Brooklyn was an international borough. Then when he was a state senator, New York was an international state. Now it's New York City is an international city, and the New York City Police Department is an international department. But all of this traveling is being done. It's rumored that this kid had 7 take-home cars coming out of a confidential rental agreement, like the confidential rental, the confidential rentals, auto and leasing rentals.
Leasing office, yeah.
Yeah, so it's 7 of them. So what do you need 7 of those cars for, right? Obviously, you would only need 1 at one time. Maybe if you had a detail and you had 2 drivers, let's just say 3, maybe. I think that's even a complete overstep, because you shouldn't have 1. You should have 1 department vehicle. That's it. But no, he had 7. And we're supposed to sit here and believe that everything's on the up and up, that there weren't people that weren't tied to the New York City Police Department using vehicles that were insured and registered by the New York City Police Department, with the gas being paid for them, with the tolls being paid for them, and every single other thing, dinners, meals, what's being paid for, where's it coming, how much money is being spent. This is pure, complete corruption. It's clear as day. It's clear as day. It's smacking me in the face how corrupt you posting that is, and that seeing what that is. Like, it's just unfettered access to money from not-for-profits that I'm sure the people donating wouldn't be happy if they found out where their money was actually going to. And also a complete misuse of taxpayer funds and probably potentially federal funds as well. So no respect for the law.
And I want to state another thing. So we do see that it's a police foundation credit card. We don't understand why he would have access to it. Obviously, it's supposed to be only I believe the police commissioner. It's one of his foundations. So Kaz Dodry having this credit card is already a problem. What it's being used for is another problem. And also, why can't we see the expenditures of, let's say, what's going on here? Because he's supposed to only have an NYPD credit card. Obviously, things that are used for department purposes, computers, all this kind of stuff would come out of the NYPD account. What's coming out of the police foundation's account, and why is this guy in particular, the deputy commissioner of operations, what is he doing with that credit card? I love to hear them try to debunk this one, John. It's like there's so many things, so many levels of corruption here at every facet, all over the place, whether it's people that are no longer working in this administration, some that might be still advising the police commissioner, some that are still there right now. Up until just the other day, they went to Washington, D.C., and we don't know who paid for that, including John Shell and Kaz Dodry, what their purpose was to be there other than hobnob with politicians apparently what are they groveling for? A pardon? I mean, what are you there for? I don't know what they're there for. There's thousands of cops there. And I understand the NYPD was allegedly pulled from being there to begin with because they didn't want to waste their resources. This is from another source in the NYPD in regards to NYPD Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch stated, we're not going to have any cops there because they wanted to allocate, they're looking at the budget, but apparently they showed up anyway. So that's a whole nother question that we could have, and we could go on and on and on. So here's the real question, John. The preemptive pardon question, because we did talk about this on the Finance Unfiltered podcast. So is it a good idea to preemptively pardon Eric Adams? And do you have a problem with the preemptive pardons of what Joe Biden did when he pre-pardoned his whole family, people in January 6th committee? What are your thoughts on all of that?
Preemptive pardons are absolutely disgusting. I think it's a complete overreach and an overstep of authority. When I looked at what happened with Anthony Fauci, Mark Milley, the January 6th committee, I was disgusted by it. And it's not because Joe Biden did it. It's because, we're pardoning people for crimes they may have potentially committed. If they committed crimes, more than likely they're victims. So what are we doing by doing that? We're re-victimizing victims, right? So I'm not for it. I'm not for a criminal-centric society. I'm for a victim-centric society. And currently what we're seeing in this country, and especially in New York City, is we are a criminal-centric society. Criminals, everything revolves around criminals. Victims are left out in the cold. The everyday working people is left out in the cold. And the same's true. I don't care if Donald Trump gives a preemptive pardon to Eric Adams or anyone else for that matter. I don't support it. I don't think it's wrong. I think it's completely wrong. I think that the American people deserve to see what evidence is being presented against these people, what those investigations entail. Let the court process play out, the judicial process play out. Let due process take its course. And if at that point somebody is convicted and you feel that was a political conviction or it was a complete overstep in sentencing or something along that line, then I support the president's decision to pardon anybody. But at least we know who what they're being pardoned for, what crimes they were. And, it's the same thing with censorship. I don't care who's doing it. If I agree with you and you're censoring people, I still don't agree with it. I don't agree with censorship. I don't care who's doing it. You can't be upset about Tony Fauci getting a preemptive pardon and jumping up and down about Eric Adams getting one. It doesn't make sense, So I'm fair. I believe in due process. I believe that I've seen firsthand people be politically persecuted, Roger Stone, other people, and they went through that process and they went through trial. And then, we've seen with the January 6th people, some of them were preemptively pardoned, or people are saying they're preemptively pardoned. They've been in jail for 4 years. That's not, they're getting time served. That's not they were not allowed. They were not due with a speedy trial. That's a completely different situation than stopping something in the course of an investigation or prior to an investigation even happening. So yeah, I don't support it at all.
I'm going to echo your sentiments here. Preemptive pardons I'm not for, only because I had to live through Roger Stone's trial. I saw how corrupt that process really was in D.C. You don't get a fair trial. It is really rigged against you. Roger Stone couldn't even put on like evidence for his own defense. He was denied that, and so were many other January 6th defendants. They were also victims of what I believe was a trap. Many of those people were trapped in. What do I say? Well, you might say they're not allowed in the building during this official, an official act of Congress. They were in there, but there were no signs. Nobody told them anything. You should have known better. Well, there were many officers who were just escorting people in, opening the doors, telling them to walk in. And these people that just walked in and walked out and didn't know what was going on, they're not from Washington, D.C., they had to go through a trial and have a felony conviction and be called an insurrectionist because it was basically entrapment. If you think that's okay, you need to do some soul searching because that's what they used to do in the Soviet Union. This is America, not Soviet Union. And you better stop with this doing things with your feelings. When you make judgments and do movements based on your feelings, that's where we all make a mistake. Now, I'm going to mention one other person here that had a 30-year sentence because they allegedly wrote a social media post or allegedly had an email that they never even opened off a Telegram, okay? But he's known as the leader of a notorious group that many people on the left don't like. But this person was sentenced to 30 years for a social media post and an email he never opened and was never in Washington, D.C. Now, if you think in America that sentencing someone for 30 years who didn't even commit an act of, there was no criminal act committed by this person, you need your head examined, really. And stop looking at your feelings because that's how you get in trouble. You don't like this guy, so you want to see him in prison for the rest of his life. But what did they really commit? What crime did they commit? That's where you need to do some soul searching because you're going down that road of, hey, man, this was Soviet Union. They just grabbed people off the street and threw them in a gulag. And they did whatever they wanted with them. And that's kind of what was going on here. Oh, yeah, they assaulted some cops. 140 cops got hurt. And I was a cop, and I'm not happy about that. But guess what? More cops get hurt during a couple of months in the NYPD and in other agencies than what happened in one day where it was just one moment in time. It was I'm not even going to say it's a riot. It was like an event that occurred that got a little rowdy and out of hand, and it was because there were no extra support. Untrained police officers, let's call it disorder control. I was taught this. I went to disorder control class. They had their shields out to protect the land, that area in the Capitol over there outside, and they didn't even know what they were doing. Capitol Police are basically security guards with guns. They don't, when did they ever take any police action? And you saw that, unfortunately. And I'm sorry if I offend any of you with a Capitol Police officer, but it's true. Have you really made any arrests? Do you answer radio runs as a police? You don't. You're just standing there guard looking pretty and hope that nobody does anything stupid or you got to spring in action. So that's what occurred that day. I'm not saying it was a pretty day, but America voted to get past this moment because we had enough about hearing this every single day, insurrection, all this stuff is nonsense. There was no insurrection, okay? It was just an event that got out of hand. Unfortunately, one person died, and guess what? That guy got pre-pardoned. So that tells you a lot about what's going on there. John, where could people reach you? Where could people find you on social media? Even though I think we know because we're watching this on the Finest Unfiltered channel.
Yeah, at John D. Macari, at the Finest Unfiltered, YouTube, Instagram, X. That's basically where we are. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that was horrible. That was January 6th was a show in complete mismanagement. And I beat up Tucker Carlson a little bit today, but I got to say, we wouldn't have known about what actually happened on January 6th if not for Tucker Carlson unleashing those videos and showing us that what the Capitol Police did. They let people by the building. They opened up the exterior perimeters, waved people in, got in, waved people in, were escorting people around the building. And some of those people got heavy sentences. And the case that you were talking about, Enrique Tarrio, where, a message was sent from an FBI informant to his Telegram, and he never even opened it. And even if he did, you get a message, you don't even know what it is, and he's getting 30 years in prison because someone sent him a message. I mean, it's insane to me. It's like, that's not America. So, thanks for the fight. I appreciate you having me on here. I think we're going to have a lot more to talk about. The week's young, my friend. So
I know. Yeah, and, in closing one more time with the pardons, a preemptive pardon of this man, Eric Adams, just remember, if you're saying, he was just to upgrade an airline ticket, not the fact that he fleeced taxpayers for $10 million of their own money in public matching funds through Turkish straw donors, their foreign donations, and he's got a witness already that's going to testify against him, which, by the way, I understand there should be charges of witness tampering in the future. If you do try to pardon this guy preemptively for whatever it is that you want to do, just remember, some things we mentioned this morning, those are crimes. And it implicates one Mayor Eric Adams, who not only the city's for sale, but the New York City Police Department is too. Remember, if you pardon this guy what are you actually pardoning him for? Because there's a lot of criminal activity surrounding this man, his administration, and unfortunately his police department. This has been Sal Greco. You've been watching the Sal Greco Show. If you can, hit that like, share, subscribe button, notification button on YouTube, on Rumble. Hit the Rumble button, hit the like button. If you're listening on any major podcast streaming platforms, please like, share, and subscribe. And with that, I'm going to say adieu.